My man Chip Patterson. The college football season has begun, and I'm surprised we haven't had a firing already. We know Bournemouth already sacked Scott Parker after getting beat 9-0 by Liverpool last weekend. How is it that Scott Frost, another Scott, hasn't been severely damaged by that loss in Ireland? Our friend Mike Felder wrote a great piece on his, I guess it was his newsletter. It's like, they flew all the way to Ireland to do what they could have done in Lincoln, Nebraska. What do you make of that?
I mean, do you think Urban Meyer walks off of the big noon kickoff set and right to Lincoln, Nebraska to go take that job? I mean, you want to talk about just a little bit of like college football. I don't know. You can really bring in all the attention. We got a mailbag question about that, and I was like, oh my goodness, you're already playing the hits right off the jump. Urban Meyer to Nebraska. Let's get it started. I'll tell you what, here's my Scott Frost thought is that when you saw the post-game press conference, it viewed differently than it read, because when I was reading the quotes as they were happening in real time, it sounded like he was throwing his offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple, under the bus. Sounded like he, felt very defeated, but, was a little bit frustrated. Then it was the defeated part that really came through when I actually got to see the video of the post-game press conference, as if he knew that result was so public with 4.4 million viewers. I mean, it damages the psyche and embarrasses Nebraska fans to go in there as a double-digit favorite, to have a double-digit lead twice. Yeah. We make all the attention about an onside kick with 11 points, with an 11-point lead midway through the third quarter, and that is fair. But they also had an 11-point lead in the first half and blew that lead too. You blow two double-digit leads as a double-digit favorite. Your offense turtles up when it counts the most, and you get Pat Fitzgeralded. I mean, that game went exactly the script for the way that Northwestern wins games. Scott Frost, it was always going to be bowl game or bust, and unfortunately, that game might be the difference between whether or not the Cornhuskers are in a bowl game. And you go and you look at two things. Number one, the back half of the schedule is brutal. The games that you would chalk up as losses, the Iowa, the Michigan, the Wisconsin, they're all at the end of the season. So number two, when Scott Frost's buyout drops from $15 million to $7.5 million on October 1st of 2022, does Nebraska's administration look at that back half of that schedule and think that Nebraska has a shot to make it to a bowl game? I think he finishes the year as the coach, but he's going to have to do some real circle the wagons, backs against the wall, pull a couple upsets off to be able to get to being the head coach in 2023.
I think Frank Solich is going to buy out that contract personally and do a hostile takeover and take his old job back. Chip Patterson is joining us. All right, did we learn anything? We'll start with the two ACC games, and we're really going to focus more on North Carolina. Do you take anything out of the game against Florida A&M as encouraging, or do we just dismiss it because somewhat of an undermanned Rattlers team with 25 or 26 players who were declared ineligible? Obviously, most of those were not starters. So, but do you take anything out of that, positively, negatively, what?
Two strong takeaways there. One very positive, which is Drake Maye. Yeah. I mean, just, are you kidding me? This was a phenomenal showing from somebody who looks every bit the part of his blue chip projection coming out of high school. He's filled out, seems to understand the offense well. He does all the things that you would hope you'd be able to accomplish. Like, our idea of the Phil Longo offense, for the most part, is based on the performance of Sam Howell. Sam Howell is a very good quarterback, but it also has shown that Drake Maye can step in and do the things with his arm and the things with his legs that Sam Howell did to make that offense so explosive. I would also point to the running back room, what Amarian Hampton did, what George Petway did. I mean, this is going to be an exciting offense that I think can score on almost everybody they play. It score a lot, if not on everybody they play. Now
it's going to look like Michigan with some creativity, because they have a lot of good tight ends too.
I love what they've done with the inside receiver. That answers a major question, and I love that he took care of the ball in the red zone, right? Yeah. You took some chances, you found your big targets, you got the scores. I think North Carolina's going to need to score all the points that the offense can score, because, Like, I understand that Florida A&M, like Musa came from Vanderbilt. He's an experienced quarterback. He's a good playmaker.
He looked good.
Do you know who else is a good quarterback? Like the ACC's loaded with good quarterbacks. Yeah. You can't use that as the excuse. And by the way, if you're getting blown off the ball and if you're kind of, not being able to stand up against the run, if you're struggling in that area, what's going to happen when App State runs right at you? And when that is going to be a physical rushing attack. And this defense, man, it's like everyone keeps coming back to Power Eccles, who did have a very, very good game. But I do think that the fact that it's going to be a bend but don't break defense is what it looks like is not overwhelmingly encouraging for me. So North Carolina looks like they can score 40 points a game. I think they're going to need to score 40 points a game because right now the defense does not look like it took a 1-year leap as so many expected.
Chip Patterson every Wednesday here on the Adam Gold Show. Now I'm making fun of this because it just struck me as funny. But in Mack Brown's Monday press conference when he was talking about Drake Maye, it was either Monday or Sunday, talking about Drake Maye, he goes, man, he's a big kid. He's 6'5". He can see. Was he taking a shot at Sam Howell?
Maybe, for sure.
You can't take a shot at somebody's height. I mean, my son gives me a hard time. He's like, oh, Dad, you're short. I'm like, yeah, I am short. Deal with it. Like,
how many inches does he have on Criswell? That was the other thing that I was looking at there.
Criswell barely played. I was a little disappointed at that.
Michael Felder pointed that out. He was like, Criswell's only 6'1". Like, was it a shot at Sam Howell or was it like one of the explanations for why we've gone all in on Drake Maye? That Criswell, though extremely athletic and very capable of being a playmaker, maybe doesn't have the same vision, and maybe some of that in Mack Brown and Phil Longo's eyes comes down simply to the 4 to 5 inches that separates those two quarterbacks. I don't know, but again, Felder pointed it out. It's like, of course, always got to give him credit, but
sure,
two references here in the same segment.
That's why we love Mike Felder.
But he said, he was like, wow, it's like if you wanted to think that this was still an ongoing competition, like they just shut the book on that because you played Florida A&M, and by the time Criswell checked in, the game had been put away.
Yeah.
That was not what I expected. I expected that May would play and then maybe Criswell comes in for the second half.
Yep.
And that wasn't what happened. This is Drake Maye's team and the redshirt freshman with the famous lineage.
Yeah.
It's all on him. So we'll see how the rookie does at the Rock on Saturday.
Another just tons of good quarterbacks in this league, man. Just absolutely great to see. All right, let's talk real quick about the Carolina game at App, and we'll probably hit NC State at ECU in the second segment.
Okay.
But because you alluded to it, when I look at this game, and I was watching the Florida A&M game, all I could think of was, man, App is going to run like stretch runs all day long, soften up Carolina's middle of their defense, and then go over the top. App doesn't have the wide receiver crew that they had a year ago, but they're going to run the ball. They're going to be physical at the line of scrimmage, and they'll be able to take their shots. Look, I'm not a huge Chase Bryce fan, but he's suited to do that.
Yeah, he's not going to tear you up with the dual threat. That is the one thing. Like North Carolina's safeties and linebackers and defensive linemen are not going to have the same kind of stresses when it comes to trying to bring down a mobile quarterback. But you are right that he proved me wrong last year a lot with his ability to sit back there and pick apart defenses through the air. I did not look at him in that light based on what I saw from Bryce at Clemson. So I think that he is 100% dangerous in the same scenario that you just laid out because that offensive line is so good, because the whole running back room is phenomenal.
Yeah.
They just keep fresh legs and they just run at you, and they've got different running styles, whether it's Peoples, whether it's Marshall. Like, I think that is the biggest thing that is concerning, is that the bend but don't break approach is going to put North Carolina in a situation where they are vulnerable to explosive plays, where when you get into the red zone, if that App running game has a little bit of a rhythm to it, then they're going to be able to punch it in for touchdowns. But to flip it on the other side, I don't know if this App State defense is going to be able to get a ton of stops against an offense that I already believe is one of the better offensive units in the entire ACC. Like, I look at this game, and I think it's going to play out a little bit on the scoreboard, not necessarily in style, to the way that we see these North Carolina Wake Forest games go. Not necessarily 62-59, but I don't know, 42-38,
oh yeah,
38-35. I mean, this looks like no one is getting stopped because App State's going to be able to pound the ball on the ground, hit explosive plays through the air. Drake Maye is going to be absolutely humming with this offense, especially with 1 week head start to sort of get everything going, which means it comes down to something dumb. It comes down to who makes a mistake, who steps up and makes a play. If you're North Carolina's defense, you hope that you get those fourth quarter turnovers the way that you did against Florida A&M. And if you're App State, you hope that the home environment, what should be an amazing atmosphere, is able to provide a little bit of boost for the Mountaineers and maybe rattle the redshirt freshman quarterback. I've got zero confidence on who actually wins the game. I lean North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I feel the most confident in is that this is going to be a game with a whole lot of points.
I think the total is 55. Really?
Too low? Too low?
We might hit that at the half.
I'm with you on that.
I know what App's about. I know what North Carolina's about. Like, I could be completely wrong, but I think this is going to go way over that. All right, before we're going to talk State ECU in the second segment. Florida State, glean anything from their blowout win over Duquesne?
No, because nothing that is going to help us understand how Florida State's going to look against LSU. Right. Nothing that's going to help us understand what Florida State is going to look like at NC State on October 8th. Nothing that's going to help us really get a feel for the Seminoles, just because we can say the wide receivers and the running backs looked good, but that's just such an athleticism advantage. And Duquesne doesn't have the defensive line to take advantage of the one place where the Seminoles are really, really questionable, and that's along the offensive line. I mean, they just have this team that, if Jordan Travis can get some time, if they can open up some running lanes, then yeah, this Florida State offense could be really fun. And I think the defense is going to be pretty good too. I like them at linebacker, like them at edge rusher, like them a lot in the secondary. But, like I look ahead at the LSU game. What can we learn from Duquesne and spin ahead to LSU? Nothing.
Right.
Because Florida State, it is possible that Jordan Travis is running for his life and the offense never gets into any rhythm because LSU's in the backfield right after the snap on every single play. I think Florida State will look better later in the year when it doesn't have to play teams with a good defensive line like LSU has. But it's just one of those, aspects of football where if your offensive line is getting beat right off the snap every single down, it's just going to be so hard to find success. And I think that's going to be the case for Florida State on Sunday night. All right,
Duke is a 7-point favorite over Temple on Friday night. Does that say everything about Temple, or am I looking at this the wrong way?
I had a fun conversation with somebody within the Duke program who said they were just really, really sad that a coaching change was made, because if they could have had that Temple game against the previous regime, it really would have been nice. But The expectation is still that this Temple team is going to be a good opportunity for a win.
Steve Adazio, right?
Who was it?
Who's the coach now?
No, Stan Drayton. He's a former Texas assistant coach.
Okay.
I actually was wondering if he was the one who voted Texas number 1. But as I told you from my sick brain, I believe it's either Nick Saban or Jeff Traylor from UTSA trying to gas up the Longhorns before their early season non-conference meeting. I think that Duke, on like an execution standpoint, will be more comfortable in its own skin later in the year.
Right.
But those opportunities to win won't be there. The best opportunity to win is going to be here against Temple in week 1.